For the next month, we'll go through the alphabet of Belgian heavy metal. On July 21st, I'll be doing a video of my top 10 favorite Belgian heavy metal songs to celebrate the Belgian national holiday. Starting today, over the next few weeks, I will be releasing videos as I go through the alphabet of Belgian heavy metal. And we'll work our way back, so we're gonna start at Z and go all the way to A. Now, I'm gonna break this up in a few videos to not make this too long. So in this video, I'm gonna focus on bands whose names start with a V, a W, an X, a Y, and we're gonna start with C. Okay, so for every letter, I will highlight a couple of bands that I think are pretty good or interesting to look at, and I will highlight my favorite band as well. So for some letters, I might have a ton of bands that I can choose from, and sometimes there's just a handful. So you'll see the difference as we go through these videos. But when we look at bands that start with the letter Z, let's kick it off with Zardens, a black death metal band that unfortunately split up. I think they released 3 albums, and their last album being my favorite, containing my favorite song, Respice, Finem, which is Latin for food for worms. Okay, moving on to my second pick for Z, the band Zwavelstorm, which translates into English as Sulphur Storm. This is a black metal band that, as far as I know, only released a few demos, but definitely worth checking out. My favorite song is from their 2010 demo called Verdwijn, or Get Lost in English, with the song Tide of Daemonic Blood. Alright, going from bands that are a little bit more in the obscure, going to more modern sounding bands. My third pick in this category is the Zygoma Disposal. I don't know much about this band, to be honest, but I do like their 2014 song, Decoder. Fourth band I'm gonna pick is Zwarte, which means Black Death. This is a raw black metal project. Most recently, Zwarte released Voor zijn glorie, which means for his glory or in his glory. My favorite song on that demo was 11 Nagels voor de Ziel, which translates into 11 nails for the soul. So who's my favorite Belgian metal band whose names start with a Z? The Belgian Tool progressive metal band Zero Gravity, that unfortunately also split up, but they released a killer album in 2011, and I would highly recommend the song Second Betrayal Part 1. So sorry to protest, but I refuse to see your heart collapsing. So we're at the letter Y. My first pick there is the band Yhdarl, who create this drone doom metal that is as beautiful as it is challenging. But my favorite song comes from a compilation EP they put out in 2019. The song is called Circles. Right, moving on, going from one extreme to another extreme. With Your God Is Dead, we've got some metalcore. Unfortunately, they already split up after just one EP, but from that EP, the song Control Denied really stands out. We've got a heavy metal band called Ython with a 2015 album of which the title I can never really pronounce properly, so I'm not even gonna try, but definitely check out the song Frenzy. Frenzy, I'm in a frenzy, I'm in a frenzy, I'm in red frenzy. Let's go back a little bit in time to the 90s. Belgium had a band that sounded a lot like 90s Annihilator. This band is called Yosh, or Yosh, or I don't know. I really don't know how to pronounce it. You definitely want to check out the 1996 album Metaphors, which contains their classic Violins of Violence. But in the end, you know, for the letter Y, it was pretty easy to choose my favorite band, the kings of Belgian stoner sludge metal, Your Highness, with their biggest hit, Desertkater. Right, moving on to the letter X. Maybe unsurprising that there's fewer bands, so my list here is a little shorter. Okay, starting off with an underground 80s speed metal band called Xiphoid. My favorite track comes from their demo, Trumps of Doom, and the classic track of that demo is Erotic Sin. Right, in the late 70s, Belgium had a couple of punk bands as well that did pretty good. An example of that is Expulsion, who had a minor punk hit with the song Castration. Moving back from the 70s to the 90s, where obviously black metal was on the rise, and in Belgium we had Xastur. Definitely check out their song Dreams of Pleasure and Pain. But my top pick for the letter X has to be Xironix. They're mostly remembered for their song Femme Fatale. To be honest, it's not the greatest song of all time, but it's kind of like one of those underground cult hits that, you know, you just have to include. When we look at the W, let's kick it off with a speed metal band from the 80s called Warhead. Their 1984 debut album called Speedway has become a classic. It is my favorite of the band, and particularly the title track. Okay, from the early 80s all the way back to the current days, there is a band that has gotten quite a bit of following. They play a post-hardcore metalcore mix. This is the band Wolf Scream. Particularly check out their 2014 song called Hurricane. Let's go back to the 80s for another great hard rock heavy metal band called White Heat. And on their 1982 album you can find really their anthem called To the Land of Rock. Show me the way, show me the way, show me the way, to the land of rock. This band is also just one of my favorites. It's again an early 80s band that plays speed heavy metal. The band is called Westfalen. Really only released one EP, which is called The Devil's Race. And all of the songs on that EP are fantastic, but the title track is their absolute anthem. So Westfalen with The Devil's Race. Okay, so my favorite band, you know, we leave the early 80s heavy metal and speed metal behind and we go all the way back to today. This is a more recent band, part of the Church of Ra, which is a collective of bands and artists all centered around the amazing Amon-Ra band, and a lot of the bands that will come back in these videos are part of this scene. And the band that I chose is the band called Wegedood, which is Dutch for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. It's not a pleasant name, it's not a pleasant band, but this is absolutely one of the best black metal bands in the world today. There, I've said it. Challenge me. My favorite album is De Doden Hebben Het Goed Part 2, which loosely translates into It's Good to Be Dead Part 2. And my favorite song on this album is called Ontzieling, which basically means taking your soul away. Like I said, these guys are not particularly the people you want to go have a beer with to have a few laughs. But great song, great band. Check them out. Okay, last letter for today's video is the V. We're gonna start it off with a band from the 8000 scene, which was a hardcore scene in West Flanders in the 90s. A band called Fatale, and my favorite track is the Circle of Life from their album Crucial Wires. And Going back to the late 70s, early 80s, the next band is called Victim. It's just an old school hard rock band that only released a couple of singles. Their standout track is Home Every Weekend. Wait, can we go back for 1 second? Look at that band picture. Ladies, control yourself. Next up, we've got Van Camp, which is the solo project around Shorty Van Camp, who was the main driver behind one of the 80s biggest bands for Belgium called Killer. Only released one album. I really like the title track. From the 80s all the way to the current days, I think there's a lot of amazing speed metal coming out of Belgium these days. Violins is one of those bands, and definitely their song Strike from the Underground.
Strike from the other.
My top pick for Belgian bands starting with the letter V is actually a brand new band called Verdoemd, which translates into English as Damned. This is a pretty cool band. It's really a one-person project, and it's a cool mix of black, death, and thrash metal. Verdoemd has released their first album a few months ago called The Black Heresy Will Prevail, and the title track of that album is absolutely killer, so check them out. Alright, so those were my top picks for Belgian bands, starting with letters V, W, X, Y, and Z. If you already knew Belgian metal pretty well, then I still hope you made some new discoveries, and if you are completely new to Belgian metal, I hope this was a great introduction. We'll see each other soon for part 2 in this series, and we'll keep doing this until July 21st, when I will share with you my favorite 10 Belgian metal songs of all time. Hey, thank you for watching this video on Belgian metal. Click right here to see more content like this and subscribe to the channel.